sure you know, but creating believable and engaging characters. I have written 2 novels in my Elena Ronan Private Investigator series, and I plan to release 2 more novels this year. So I've been writing for a long time, and I kind of feel like I've tried just about every method there is for creating characters, and everybody is going to have different things that work for them. Something might work for me that doesn't work for you. But I'm just gonna, try and give you as much information as I can and ideas. Because characters are often going to be the basis of your story. So if they're two-dimensional or just, too focused and boring, even your most exciting plot is going to be pretty boring. So I'll just try and give as many tips as I can, and then we'll have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we'll do Q&A at the end, but if you want to interrupt me, that's okay too. If there's something you want to ask, directly related to what I'm saying. So I like to know as much about my characters as I possibly can, and most of it's not actually going to make it into the story, but knowing my character and their background and their childhood, what they've been through, will kind of help me to know more about how they're going to act and react to certain situations and their mannerisms and things like that. So I like to, as crazy as it might sound, have conversations with my characters, just kind of pretend like I'm at a coffee shop or at a bar or some foreign planet. Just make it a setting that's going to be believable for your character, and just sit down and have a conversation with them. It sounds a little weird, but it really works, and just ask them questions back and forth. And so some of the things I'll ask them is, how did you grow up? What's your family like? Do you have brothers and sisters? Mom and dad? Were your parents divorced? Were you an orphan? Just everything about how they grew up and their background. What do they like? What hobbies? Movies, music, food, any little thing. You can go as far into detail as you want or not. Whatever you think you're going to need to know to help you write the most real character in your story. What car do they drive? That can tell you something. If your character drives a beat-up Unger, is it because they can't afford to buy a new car? Or is it because they just don't care and they'd rather spend the money on clothes and food and things like that? Or if they drive a luxury car, is it because they actually can afford that Mercedes? Or are they living on ramen noodles because they just have to have that status symbol of an expensive fancy car? Things like that can help you get to know what your character is like. What kind of clothes do they wear? Don't go down a laundry list of, a flowy blue blouse and a long purple skirt, or, don't want a laundry list of their clothes. But, little things covered in here and there. If your character wears jeans and t-shirt all the time, again, is it because that's what they like? Or is it just because they can't afford nicer things? If they wear tennis shoes all the time because they have to be able to run away from the bad guys at a moment's notice? Or is your character a businessman who wears fancy loafers for that image of what they project? That can tell you about what your character cares about. Do they care about what people think about them or not? Where does your character live? Things like, if you can take little things from their background and pepper it throughout the story to tell what the character is like. If they're a neat freak, is it maybe because they had an overbearing parent that would always yell at them for having their room messy? Superficial things can give a lot of insight into a person, and just little mannerisms and the way your character talks and the way they behave. People watching is a great way to develop your characters. Go out to a coffee shop or a convention is wonderful for people watching. Just take note of random people's mannerisms, people you know. How do they carefully stir their coffee? Or do they make a mess of stirring their coffee? Anywhere you are, in line at the grocery store, while you're waiting, just kind of watch how people act. And you can that into your story, or people you've known. You know, maybe don't make it obvious, somebody that you know, but we all know people who have little quirks that you think, oh, that would be interesting to write about. So when you're talking about all this information that you know about your character, you don't want to do just a brain dump, you know, pepper this information in throughout the story. Just a little hint here, a little tidbit there to give this insight into your character's personality. You know, maybe something happens that triggers a memory from your character, such as, you know, you could write a line, something like, the crash of the glass pitcher falling to the floor made Betty recall when her father beat her for dropping a glass when she was 10 years old. So that could tell you maybe if she has issues with men or physical affection, that might tell you why. So another thing that is a little more subtle, but your name of the character, you know, names all have meanings. There's a website called behindthename.com, and I love it. It has names from dozens and dozens of cultures, and it might not be something your reader picks up. You know, a lot of people are not going to, you know, look up what the character's name means, but some people will, and that can give you a little more insight into what your character is like. Be consistent with your characters. Don't present your character one way the first 100 pages or so of a novel or the first book of a series, and then all of a sudden change the way your character acts for no reason. If there's a big event that makes your character change, that's okay, but don't just randomly change the way they act. You know, wishy-washy characters that are not consistent are really going to annoy a lot of your readers. So just be consistent in how they act. And definitely do your research. For example, if your character is a police officer, make sure what they do is believable. You can, you know, with the internet, there's a ton of sites you can look at. You've got to be careful. You know, always double, triple check your information because you might look at one site that's totally wrong. So be sure to carefully do your research. My main character is a private investigator. When I first wrote the book, I wrote her as a police officer, but then I realized that a lot of the things I wanted to happen in the novel, a lot of the things I had her doing, were not at all realistic if she was a police officer, because they have a lot of, you know, rules and regulations that it wasn't believable, so I changed her to be a private investigator. So even if you're writing, you know, it's fiction, so yes, you can make things up, but still do your research, because people are going to notice the facts. You know, if a police officer is reading your book and notices things that you have wrong, it's going to kind of turn them off on reading it anymore if it looks down the road. So you want to have all of that be believable as well. Dialogue is another way that you can bring your character's personality across. The way they speak, the words that they use, their inflection. I don't know if some of you have read Fault in Our Stars. I just read that book. It's a movie that's coming out this summer, and the dialogue was just, the two characters, and really, they had very unique ways of speaking that kind of told me just by the way they spoke of what they were like. So I thought that was really cool. But make sure it's believable. You know, I'm a woman, so if I'm writing a male character, I'm going to ask some of the men in my life, hey, will you read a couple paragraphs and tell me, is this believable? You know, is this really how a man would speak? Because we know men, we know women, we think we know how everybody talks, but it's always nice to just get that second opinion on what you're writing, and does it make sense? Is it believable? Actions and mannerisms are a way that you can bring your characters to life. So this kind of falls under the show, don't tell category. So let's say your character won an award for something. Don't just tell me, oh, Susan was happy she won the award. Show me how she was happy. Is she really excited and animated? Does she jump up and down clapping? Or is she more reserved and just kind of smiles quietly, clutching the trophy in her hands? that's two very different people, someone who's animatedly excited or somebody who's calmly excited. So show me that about your character, don't just tell me what they do. I asked a lot of readers what they liked and disliked in characters in books that they were reading. A lot of people mentioned female protagonists. So there are a lot of books nowadays that have a strong female protagonist, which is great, but strong does not mean bitchy. It's very possible to be strong and female and still be nice and feminine. And on the other hand, we also don't want to, most people don't want to read about sexist male protagonists. You know, you can have a male hero who, you know, rescues one of your characters, but make sure he's, you know, more realistic and compassionate and not just stuck up and, you know, riding in on his white horse. It's kind of fairy tale, and it's going to turn a lot of readers off if your characters are sexist or just really kind of bitchy, for lack of a better word. So, in fantasy and a lot of genres, you're going to have just obvious heroes, you're going to have obvious villains. Even heroes need flaws. So I think a lot of people, at least I do, think Superman is kind of boring because he's perfect. He doesn't really have any flaws. Whereas on the other hand, Batman, who is commonly kind of looked at as a hero, he's not necessarily a good person. I mean, yeah, he fights the bad guys, but he's filled with all this rage and desire for vengeance, and, you know, he's got that realistic, you know, not perfection to him. So, you know, even if your character's a really, really good person, you know, she might rescue animals and volunteer in a nursing home and, you know, do all kinds of stuff. Well, that's great for your character, but it's kind of boring for your readers. So give your character a flaw. You know, maybe she's an alcoholic, or, you know, Dexter, the serial killer who only kills serial killers. You know, give your heroes that flaw that's going to make them more human. And conversely, villains still need to have a little bit of likable characteristics. They need to have a little bit of sympathy towards them. So one of my favorite examples, if you've seen Once Upon a Time, and if you haven't, I'm sorry for an example that won't mean anything, but Regina, the evil queen, I think she's, the first season I didn't like her at all, and I didn't really see any reason whatsoever, no redeeming qualities, and I just really hated watching that show, or watching her scenes, since there was no reason for her to be the way she was in my eyes. But then there's Loki, who, yeah, he's the trickster and he's devious. But he was raised his whole life as the second best child. You know, Thor was very obviously Odin's favorite son, and Odin's favorite son, and he made no secret of that, and Loki was always kind of pushed aside and belittled, and he had that to make him into the person that he is. So give your character, you know, even if it is a villain, give them a reason. Why are they acting the way they are? Is it because they were always pushed aside and belittled as a child? Maybe they're trying to do something to save their sick mother. You know, there's always going to be a reason. You know, characters aren't black and white, good or evil, so tell us why. You know, Lord of the Rings, Saruman the White, wasn't always a bad wizard, but Sauron got his claws around him, and that kind of goes to show that, yeah, people are fallible, and it also shows just how powerful Sauron is, that he was able to turn Saruman to the evil side. And then you also have Gandalf, who we all think is a good wizard, and he really is, but he also knows that he can't carry the One Ring. He can't do this when Frodo asks him to, because he knows that he's going to give into that power, and it will turn him evil. So when in doubt, just give your character another flaw. If things are happening too easily, you're probably doing something wrong. Your character's probably a little too perfect. So just give them another flaw to deal with. And I talked a little bit about finding Google character worksheets online and you're gonna find tons and tons, and they get really, really in-depth. And you can get a little lost in filling these out, so don't spend all your time filling out these character worksheets, but look through them. They're gonna give you a lot of good ideas about what you want to know about your character and what you might need to know to make your character realistic. And so more in direct line with your novel, there are going to be things that you need to know about your character in relation to your story. So what is your character's objective in this story? And what brought your character to the point of having that objective? What happened that makes them want this thing? And what's stopping the character? Is it another person? Is it, some kind of external force? What's stopping your character from reaching that objective? What can you do to bring your character to their breaking point? Write that out. You don't always have to include it, but it'll help you get to know where they are and who they are. Just don't forget, your character must be changed somehow by the end of the story. It doesn't necessarily have to be a major change, sometimes it is. But if they haven't changed in some way, what's your story about? What happened? Why did you write it? And one of the last things that I like to do is sum up your character in a couple of words or a couple of sentences. Really try to boil it down to the essence of your character. So I would describe my main character as an independent woman who's scared to trust, but determined to protect those she loves at any cost. So once you've got all this, all these ideas written out about who your character is, boil it down to that little point to really kind of sum them up and get to know them. So, does anyone have questions? Yes.
Currently, I'm working on something that's a bit more visual based. And my artist, and this character with a cigarette in their hand, and they were smoking. I had no intention of making that. I personally don't like smoking, so I kind of reflect my moral opinions and that kind of stuff on my characters. So I wasn't too sure how to take this. Should I have accepted that I kind of changed the direction of the character, or should I just stuck with it and maybe not change it or something?
No, I can't tell you exactly. I can tell you what I would have done. I would not have accepted it. If you really didn't have that, if it doesn't go with this character, I would have said, hey, this isn't really what I see my character, not how I imagine him being portrayed. So if you really feel strongly about it, the artist is working, are you paying him?
Oh, yes.
Then yeah, definitely. If it's somebody who's just kind of doing you a favor, it's a little more, it's like, well, I'm helping you out, but, you also have, you created the character. So I would say, just go back and just explain why you don't agree with that. Yeah. Any other questions about creating characters?
When you have two characters that are the two main characters and they're a foil for each other, at one point in my story, I'm having them diverge. They're in separate parts of the world. Is there any particularly good way to keep their storylines in check with each other, but not so obviously on the same together? You're targeting
Can you tell me a little more about what do you think keep in check?
I don't want the things that are going on with one character to overwhelm the things that are going on with the other character that's in a different part of the world. But I still want to be able to get them back together later on. I'm not sure how to do that.
Oh, you're not sure